Hi, everybody. Welcome inside the DiME podcast, the podcast for current FTT students, past, and maybe even future FTT students. And if you just like media, come on in. This is going to be the podcast for you. We're breaking it down with industry professionals that are Notre Dame alums or Notre Dame adjacent. And we're putting a little twist on it as well. We're bringing in current FTT students to talk about their own experience as well and dig into the minds of these professionals. This week, we're talking to Christine Swanson, the writer, director, and producer who is a Notre Dame alum and has made it to the top of the film world. We're talking to her right now. We welcome you into our fabulous DiME podcast studio. We're now sitting down with Christine Swanson, writer, director, producer, and then FTT senior, who's concentrating in film, Micaela Alvarado. Guys, thank you so much. DiME podcast, guys, kicking it off here a little bit for us on this Friday. But we'll start on the big, broad question. Both of you, for Micaela, your current, your past, what brought you to Notre Dame?
Initially?
Yeah.
I followed my husband. He was a year ahead of me.
Yeah.
We had dated when I was in high school. I'm from Detroit. I probably would have gone to University of Michigan. And I met Michael Swanson. And he was like, hey, come check out Notre Dame.
Love it.
Okay. That's so cute, though.
Aww. I wouldn't recommend it, but go ahead.
For me, why did I chose? Okay, that's a great question. It's not like your typical answer because senior year, honestly, I didn't even know about Notre Dame. I'm like in the scholarship program, and they're like just matching schools with me. They're like, you can maybe fit this, and I was like, okay, I guess. And yeah, I applied, but also I'm from California, and I'm also a first generation college student.
Nice.
So
Me
I was
too.
looking for a school that would best, give me opportunities to succeed, and also academics, and Notre Dame was that. So yeah. Also out of state. I wanted to leave California, or at least what I knew, because I'm so used to a little bubble in my community. I love them, but I just feel like I need to experience more to grow, and so I was really hoping to leave my home, and yeah, I'm here.
Love and leave home.
Yeah.
Two very interesting reasons how you get to Notre Dame. For Christine, for you, you're also, while your time, you were a Japanese major here on campus. Do you feel like that Japanese major pushed your film in any certain way? Did you feel like you reap the benefits of it still to this day that you majored in Japanese?
So the language is not as important today.
Yeah.
It's Mandarin, right? But back when I was here, it was all Japanese and business. That was like the thing to do. And actually, I was a finance major.
Mendoza.
Yeah. Well, it was like I was going into that.
Yeah.
And then I took my first econ class, and I was like, they're speaking Greek. I don't know what's happening, right? And then my freshman year at Notre Dame, towards the end of my freshman year, Spike Lee came to campus, and he was talking about do the right thing. And I was like, I'm from Detroit. Like, I'm not from LA where you see people shooting movies all the time. So when I heard Spike Lee talk, I thought, people make movies for a living? And right afterwards, I promptly changed my major. And my husband did that too. Michael did that too. He was a government major. And then we both were like, we can make movies. And so we changed our major, and we took courses with Ted Mandel, and Ted changed our lives forever.
Ted Mandel, lasting effects here in the FTT program.
With him too. That's nice.
That's awesome. And you talked about that opportunity you have when you look at the FTT and the programs that you bring to this. What do you think FTT makes it so special? Because it's not an NYU. It's a little bit a very different program, but both of you have spoken very highly of Notre Dame. And why is that the fact?
When I took FTT, it was called Communications and Theater. So
dang, a whole name change.
Yeah, they did change the name. And what was really interesting for me was not so much the production classes. I did take Ted's class, and I was really discouraged afterwards. I'm sure Ted thought like, oh, she's not gonna make it, like because it was new to me. Like I'd never had any kind of media or production experience. So I thought maybe like when I did not do well in his class, and I did not, no matter what he says, I did not do well, and I did not know what I was doing, I still had to take some film theory classes. So I took classes with Jim Collins, and back in the day was Hillary Radner. And those classes really opened my mind in terms of storytelling in ways that, now that I look back in hindsight, were probably more important than the production classes, because it really showed me what storytelling or what images can do on an aesthetic level.
That's kind of like me right now. You said something about storytelling. For me, I always loved film, or like the idea of like creating. I just feel like that's just a very important part of how I'm able to express myself and like find peace and happiness. But what got me started into like this idea is editing. I used to make lots of like video edits of like my favorite singers when I was younger, and so I've only like known like video editing, and then obviously like your classic like production on set. But it wasn't until actually being at Notre Dame I took a class with Chris Becker about like the media industries. I'm like, what? There's like so many different roles. Like I didn't know about, like, obviously I knew about post, but I really didn't think about it as like its own separate thing.
Right.
But then I learned a lot about development and the part of like actually writing scripts and like birthing these stories. And so my junior year I decided to like dive into that, and like I fell in love with like that aspect of storytelling, because for me I felt like I love journaling just to like let everything out, and I felt that this was a new way I can do that and share my stories or things that like interest me with the world. So I agree. I don't know, I really appreciate that about the FTT classes here.
And then on those notes, when you talk about it, is that something that you have in your own experience as well as that storytelling and finding that outlet for you through your work?
Sure. I think everyone is a storyteller, but we're not nurtured into believing that. So one of the funniest things about being an FTT major at Notre Dame, like really Mendoza leads, right?
Yeah.
So you got all those business majors who think they're going to change the world through whatever it is that they do. I don't know, but if you actually talk to those guys and girls, and really dig deep into who they are, you find out that they too are storytellers. The difference is it's really a matter of whose parent is pressuring them the most to find a major in order to get a job. And that's kind of been like the running theme in terms of like, you can't major in film and TV. But the irony of it is there's so many jobs in this industry that are viable, that you can I make a great living, and maybe I make more money than some of those guys from Mendoza. So it shouldn't be the goal in terms of what you study and how you expand your mind, So I would always recommend creativity to any student who wants to figure out what to do in life, because creativity is you can't outsource it, right? So that's the one thing that only we can kind of do ourselves, and that's always going to pay back dividends.
This also, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but everything you said I agree with, because I feel like for me creativity is like the foundation of how I can function as a human being.
Right.
But sometimes right now that I'm a senior and I'm going to graduate soon, I'm starting to think about like, this is going to be my career, but I'm like kind of worried, or I think about like the blending of like my love for creativity and like the idea of work, and like that kind of like destroying my love for creativity, like just the fear, because this is like your work, you do this every day. And like, I don't know, how do you balance that? It's just,
well, here's a truth that is kind of universal. You're gonna have to work hard at whatever you do, right? And sometimes you may have to work hard at something that you don't love initially, to get to what you do love. And all of that is actually just a part of the process. So don't despise that. Don't despise, like, I don't have my dream job and it's just drudgery and I'll never see the light of day. You never really stay stagnant in that, especially because you're already wired to be a creative person. So you're going to move and flow in the way that you're led. and it's going to get you to where you're supposed to be. But it's just not going to be overnight. That's the thing. And pretty much college and all of life is preparation for when you're ready to show up in the way that you're supposed to. And you will get there because you get to make choices along the way, and you can do something that you hate for a year and switch. And you do that for 2 years, and hey, I like this better. But you meet people and you start to cultivate like your friend group and your network so that you can start to prepare to make moves. So that's all you're doing. So you don't have to worry like, I don't know what I can do with this major. It's really, you need to be thinking like, what can't I do?
That's very
with this major
reassuring to hear, because like I do feel that way. It's just like, obviously being at this campus, Notre Dame as a community, I just feel like the vibe is very like competitive, very like, I'm gonna get my job, I'm doing that, and I'm like, that's not really me. And like I really want to stay true to who I am and as a person and like my energy. So it's just very reassuring to hear that.
And listen, you don't want to peak in college.
True.
So don't worry about the competition here. This is not where you want to win. You want to do well and cultivate like who you are and on the way to where you're becoming. But please don't peak here. All right? Because I know people who have peaked here, and that's it. And honestly, there's so much more that you guys got to go after. So this is just a launching pad for where you're going to go. And you will figure it out. I promise you.
Nice.
So sound advice. And you talk about the launching pad. You took your talents to Tisch at NYU. And I know this is something that Micaela is talking about and deliberating about. What do you do post-graduate life? And is it graduate school? Is it going to film school?
Well, I would say if you're independently wealthy or you have a trust fund, go to film school. That's not always the case for folks. But here's the other thing. They do have scholarships and fellowships. So when I went to NYU, I actually got a full fellowship to study there after my first year. So if you have some promise or talent, they may have some money for you. Don't let that stop you. But what I would say is this: you don't need to go to film school to do what I'm doing. Maybe 20 years ago when I came out of Notre Dame, remember, I kind of failed in production class. So I always knew that if I wanted to be a filmmaker, that somewhere along the way I had to face it and figure out how to do it. So I decided to go to NYU because it was production oriented. Like they just throw cameras at you and they're like, go make a movie. And that forced me then to switch gears and learn that part of the trade. And at Notre Dame, I really stayed in the aesthetic part of it. And then I was like, in real life, you combine both. So that was necessary for me. Today, you guys have access to film school on YouTube. I'm not even
so
joking.
True. Even on social media, I'm not gonna lie. Like TikTok, I know. I see some things. I'm like, let me write it. Take that note.
So just be mindful that you don't have to do it in a structural institution. What I will say was useful about going to a graduate program like NYU is that they allowed you to fail locally. Okay, like it's one thing to fail publicly, but if you can fail locally first, you can figure out what you're made of. And that's what NYU afforded me, is you could try some things and you're like, okay, that's not it. And I'm going to try it again. Okay. And apply what I learned into the next thing, into the next thing. And ultimately all you're doing is growing and cultivating your craft. So that's what school allows you to do. You can do that here, right? So that if you learn to fail, that's why I'm saying like the competition and all the kids who are great, it's really take advantage of the opportunities to try something that you wouldn't otherwise try, even if you failed at it. Because failure really is a stepping stone for success. But if you haven't learned how to fail, it's gonna hurt, like in real life, you know. So that it's like take chances and try things and meet people, and go ahead and try to conquer the world and not achieve it, but learn from what those lessons are. It's like maybe I didn't do this right, but I can tweak it and do this right the next time. This is where you do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then you don't want to get out there and somebody gives you a big job and you've never really learned like what you're made of, you know, and now you have to prove it and the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
Good luck at that. But even then, like, go for it. And my motto is like, there's nothing that I won't try because I have to see what I'm made of. You know?
I agree. I feel like I'm very much like that because right now I was just thinking about back to the first question of why I chose Notre Dame. And I think it's because it's like, I know I just want to see what I can do. And like, I was just too much in comfort. And I feel like there's just so much to grow. And like being uncomfortable will allow me to learn more about myself, but also get these experiences and meet people because I don't know what lies ahead, you know?
That's the secret. Like, being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Somehow that's like a weird kind of catalyst for creativity. You know? Like the unknown. And you're thrown into something and I don't know what I'm going to do. And then if you get on the other side of it and thrive, it's like, wow, I did that. What can't you do, right?
Exactly.
Is there a moment that you believe that you failed and you learned, because you've talked about failure and how that's where your learning experience, is there a moment in your successful career that you failed, got back up, and now you are where you are today?
So many times. I'm reminded of whatever project I did for Ted, my first one. I don't know I hope he doesn't have a copy of it, but I was lost and I actually gave up. That's why I stopped taking production classes. And I found myself, I felt safer in the aesthetic classes. And I'm not sure that I did what I'm telling y'all to do. But I kind of hid. And I'm like, but I just loved what I was learning in the other courses. So, yes, I can tell you of some. The first time I ever directed like a show that required guns, stunts, and car chases, because I'm like I do romantic comedies, and then I got thrown.
It's like, woo, like
it's the opposite. I was given a show to direct, and I had never done any of that, and so much of that required me relying on other people while being the leader. That was like, I was shaking in my boots. Like, but you know, I just had to do it afraid. And thankfully, like the episode turned out great. But there's a lot that I had to learn on the job. And it's the scariest thing I've ever did. Like, and it happens a lot. And what I realize is I figured out how to do it. I can do it again.
Did you so when you figured it out, like, for this experience, would you say like any of your experiences in this like FTT classes helped you with that? Or like,
well, like I said, it was like sitting in a class and being lost. It's the idea that, oh, I've been there before. Right? And it's not the end of the world. It's just that's it. It's not the end of the world. So what do I have to do to make the adjustments to be successful right now? And half of that was leaning on the people who are professionals in this, who know, and then not pretending like I knew something I didn't.
Yeah. And then big reason why you're here on campus is part of a little bit of the rom-com aspect of your venture in Faith Filmworks, of created a fabulous franchise along the lines of this rom-com. As you said, you created this little niche for yourself. Right. What was it like creating and jumping off Faith Filmworks with both yourself and with your husband?
Well, the first film that we made was like almost 23 years ago, and it was a cute romantic comedy. It starred this relatively unknown actress. Her name is Renee Elise Goldsberry. She played Angelica Schuyler in Hamilton. So from that point on, she just blew up to be like a superstar. And so like 23 years later, earlier this year, Renee starred in my rom-com called Albany Road. So it's just a full circle moment.
Yeah.
And I think this is my best work to date. And it's great to do it with people that you get to grow with. So we feel like this will be the beginning of more films like this. So I direct a lot of television.
Yeah.
And I say that's my 9 to 5. I direct TV for money.
Yeah.
And then I make movies for passion. And eventually the money will catch up with the movies. But they're lower budgeted indie films. But given my vast experience from having directed so much television, I can make $2 look like $2 million. So that's the experience part of just learning while executing craft.
What do you think? Why is Albany Road your best work thus far? Is it just the experience you now have more under your belt, or is there a specific element that you can push to and point to that's like, this is why it's
well,
this?
It's my 7th feature film. So if you don't get better after doing 6 feature films,
I don't know what to tell you.
Right. So that and it's probably my cast is like A-list. And like for the budget I had, I probably shouldn't have been able to afford them, but because of my reputation, I was able to get people who were like, we just want to work with you.
Wow.
So if I can get a cast of that caliber, and then like my DP shot Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
So he's like, I just want to work with you. So when you get to that space where people are there because they love working with me and they love the craft, now we're having fun. Yeah. Right? When you have fun with crew and cast, magic can happen. And when magic happens, that's why I'm doing this. So that's what I'm chasing. So that's why I think it's my best work yet, because we all got to do it with the goal of having fun and bringing our creative best to the table. And just it's like a crapshoot. You just shoot it, and let's see what we're made of. Yeah. And we're on the other side of the edit, and I think it's pretty outstanding.
That's what I love to hear. And so coming up on the final couple of minutes of the show here, we'll finish it up with every question we ask, and this is going to be for both of you. What advice do you give for people that want to pursue filmmaking?
Especially, I wanted to speak to you as a woman of color, and like being the first in my family, going to college, doing anything, or like following her dreams, like. Right. Yeah, I just.
So I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm from Detroit. Where are you from?
I'm from Santa Ana, California.
Okay, so I'm from the hood.
Me too.
Okay, but close to the beaches.
Yeah. I'm close to the beaches.
I'm like, there's no hood in LA. I keep looking for it. So here's the thing, the fact that you've made it here is awesome. You're a senior, so you're gonna graduate.
I know,
right?
Yeah.
You have done something remarkable, right? But don't rest on your laurels, right? Because to the extent that you're capable of coming here and graduating, there's more that's going to be required, right? So I would recommend like you stay curious and making a difference your goal, not making money. Not making a living, because honestly, with a Notre Dame degree, it's not hard to make a living. I mean, if you can't figure that out, then you're dumb. I'm sorry. Yeah. You really can use this degree and make a living. I would say being a product of this type of education and this type of environment where I believe it's service-oriented, faith-based, and about a mission greater than yourself. Live like that. Live for something greater than yourself. Okay? So if you keep that kind of mindset, you're already above the fray. Most people are here thinking, I'm just going to survive. I'm just going to make a living. If you can think like, what can I do that goes above and beyond, that just services me, you're already making a difference in the zeitgeist that you're going to create, that we need you guys to be in, to kind of rescue the mess that my generation has made. So think like that, not like, what do I need to do to be a successful filmmaker?
Yeah,
that's a poverty of thought. Because you're already thinking, I have to be successful.
Yeah,
I would push you to try to figure out, what can I do that's bigger than myself, and how can I push myself to be of service to something beyond myself? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if it's just me, then it's going to be another generation that we're going to have to recover from the messes that really selfishness creates. So just don't stay there. Go there. Okay?
Will do. Noted.
I can't thank you, Christine, enough, as well as you, Micaela, for coming on and really launching us off here for the DiME podcast. I greatly appreciate you sitting down and having these conversations with us and giving us a piece of thought to chew on for a little bit.
Thank you. I felt like I was talking to Conan O'Brien.
Fun.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
The red hair and everything.
And his voice.
Right?
Something about your voice. I just love it.
Good job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. DiME podcast rolls on after this.